Hello, Outlaw Bookseller Stephen E. Andrews here, with another story from Bookselling. And this is a horror story, so I didn't want to film at night because I've got a bit scared, really. So it's a horror story, and it's also a heavy metal story. And I'm not really a massive heavy metal fan. I do like the precursors, people like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, the way, us old guys do. I'm very fond of the first Judas Priest albums, the first four or five. I could talk about them for hours. And when I start doing um, some music clips, I'll talk about the Priest at length. So bear with me till then. And I thought I'd talk about, first of all, about the horror I'm selling at the moment, because this story I'm going to tell you goes way, way back to 1986 about a great figure I met back then in the course of my book selling duties. But just to show you the sort of thing people are buying now in horror, people are obviously still buying Stephen King in huge quantities, which is very boring. But if you like it, you like it, that's fine. He's quite a figure. But I do wish people would diversify a bit more. And I'm getting the feeling the last couple of years when I look at the horror I'm selling, the people are getting interested in branching out, reading more classic material. They've done King, they've done the Lovecraft thing. And although I'm selling some contemporary books, they are buying more modern classic things. And I'm just going to show you a few of the sort of things they're buying. And these are all from Penguin Classics in the USA, distributed in the UK. This is Ray Russell's The Case Against Satan. Fantastic jacket, that. And this is like a precursor of The Exorcist. It came out 6 or 7 years before in the early 60s. And Catholic Church, demonic possession of a young person, possible child abuse. Really great book, very terse and sharp and straightforward. I absolutely love this. This is fantastic. And what a title, The Case Against Satan. Now that is a title, unforgettable. I'm also selling Thomas Ligotti. This is his first two books in an omnibus volume, Grimscribe and Songs of a Dead Dreamer. Ligotti, to my way of thinking, often gets compared to Lovecraft, and I sort of sell him on the point of he's Kafka meets Lovecraft. But to me, he's more like Robert Aikman, who I'll talk about another time. Aikman is undergoing a resurgence of popularity as well, so we'll talk about him another time. Probably the best selling of these Penguin Black classics that I'm doing from my horror section where I work is this one, Japanese Ghost Stories by Lafcadio Hearn. Absolutely beautiful. This has been in and out of print in different editions for many years. Sometimes it's called Kwaidan, Stories of Strange Things, and it's full of Japanese folk horror stories which Lafcadio Hearn collected together. Things like Kwaidan, of which of course has been filmed. If you like films like Onibaba, those classic Japanese ghost story films, you'd love this. This is the nicest edition I think it's ever had. And Lafcadio Hearn was an American who he sort of lived sort of late 19th, early 20th century, married a Japanese lady, and he pretty much introduced Japanese culture to the whole San Francisco Bay Area, California. He was a great popularizer of Japanese culture, and he lived over there. He loved it. And a friend of mine called Joe Roberts, who's a travel writer, a great guy, we worked together in bookselling in the late 80s. He lent me a biography of Hearn back in those days, which was fascinating. And I went on then and read his stories, and really great. So if you're a fan of everything Nipponese and ghostly, you can't go wrong. Go for it. It's excellent. Finally, of this little tranche, we have Charles Beaumont, Perchance to Dream, which has a really lovely jacket. Look at that, really strange Bosch meets Toy Town effect there. And I'm not so convinced by Charles Beaumont. He died very young. He did a lot of television writing for things like, I think, The Twilight Zone. And there's a forward here by William Shatner, but he was adored by people like Ray Bradbury and Harlan Ellison. They really talked him up. As I say, I probably need to read some more. I'm not entirely convinced yet, but if you like the sort of things that Bradbury, Richard Matheson, who is pretty much God as far as I'm concerned in the horror area, if you like the sort of things those guys did, then you'd really like this, so do give it a try. So that's an idea of what I'm selling at the moment. I'm just going to finish off with one in hardcover. This is a book I sold loads of a few years ago. One Christmas, I sold 28 copies of this. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but when you're up against all the bestsellers, this is Arthur Machen, The Great God Pan, in lovely, decadent yellow cloth from Oxford University Press, conjuring up the fin de siècle period, the end of the 19th century. Machen was the Welsh Lovecraft, is how I describe him. He's enjoying a resurgence now, and people are all over it. Great writer, very interesting. Scott Bradfield's done a great thing about Mackin on his channel, so check it out, because Scott is the man when it comes to lo-fi channels like this and high quality content, proper literary content. Do check Scott's channel out and watch his clip about Mackin. It's fantastic. This is out in paperback in a World's Classic. It's much nicer in hardcover than it's only about 15 quid. So if you like Lovecraft and you want something subtler, but something that influenced Lovecraft loved Mackin, go for it. So back to my horror story. It's 1986 and I'm running a small bookshop for Pan, the publisher, one of my favourite publishers, especially back then. I was very enamoured of the silver lozenge that they used to put on their science fiction covers. And I worked for Pan for about 6 months and they gave me my first bookshop manager's job. So I've always been grateful to them. And one day I was buying with a publisher's rep from a publisher called W.H. Allen, Star. And that's the W.H. Allen logo on this book. I'm going to conceal the title. There we are. And W.H. Allen and the paperback imprint Star were rather looked down upon at the time. The list was quite small. It seemed really trashy. They had people like Eric Van Lestbader, and they had Charles Bukowski, funnily enough, who was pretty much unknown over here then. Only a few old hippies knew about Bukowski. He wasn't the popular figure that he is now. My first Bukowski paperback was a Star paperback of Factotum. I'll show you one day. And Sue, the rep, who later on had her own bookshop. Hi, Sue. I haven't seen you for millions of years. Hope you're still out there. She said, oh, we've got Shaun Hutson going on a promotional tour and for his new books with us. And her take on it is, well, Shaun was working a bit more seriously and trying to become more literary, because of course he was known as a schlockmeister, producing, you know, low-grade gory crud. But Shaun, his work's great fun. I mean, slugs, things like that, the sort of things that the literati really look down on, which rather sort of endears me to them. And I wasn't really certain. I hadn't actually read any of Shaun's work. And she said, he's doing this promotional tour and I need somebody to come along to a lunch in an evening, because he's doing the meet and greet and pressing the flesh. And I thought, well, yeah, why not? So, and Sue gave me a copy of this book, Assassin, which I think was new in paperback then, and this is a first hardcover. And I have to say, I absolutely loved it, and I've reread it in recent years. And there's a picture of Shaun on the back in the day, with the bedeviled by the bubble perm and the leather jacket, lots of rings and stuff, the shades. Shaun's a real rock and roll guy. He's a huge Iron Maiden fan. And I read this and I love it. And I would describe it as Get Carter meets Night of the Living Dead. And it's a great fun read. An undead assassin stalking people from the world of gangland London. It's really exciting. Make a great film, actually. Yeah, I can really see it. It would be great. Lots of, those old Sweeney style shutters, Get Carter type action, and really, really nasty gore and scare effects in it. So it's a great fun book. I really love it. I think Shaun is a superb entertainer, and he's a lovely guy. And I was sitting there with Sue and Shaun and two guys from a local wholesaler, had suits and ties on. They're very nice, but they're very, very straight. And we talked, and me and Shaun really hit it off because we had so much in common. We talked about heavy metal. I waxed lyrical about Judas Priest. He was wearing a Wasp t-shirt. And we talked about our favourite serial killers. Ed Gein was probably mine at that time. And we talked about zombie movies, which of course, then they were in their golden age. Things like Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, Dawn of the Dead, Burial Ground, The Nights of Terror, all those things had come out by that point. And these two guys from the wholesalers and Sue, they were sort of rolling their eyes and they thought it was all a bit weird. But this is the thing. People think that people like horror and all this sort of stuff must be dreadful netters, but they're usually really nice and gentle and people who wouldn't hurt a fly, and we all know that from our experience. So it was really lovely meeting him. He doesn't do public appearances, done anything like that for years. He's a bit of a recluse, but he's still pumping the books out, and he produces great things now and again. And this is one. This is probably about 10 years old or so, but this is one I really enjoy. Twisted Souls. I love that title, and it says on the cover, 2 men, 2 women, 1 nightmare. And yeah, this is a grim one. It's great, absolutely great. And it's published by, let's have a look. I can't even read this in this light. Time Warner Books, because Star, W.H. Allen, no longer with us, got swallowed up. But I have a real affection for their books because they did some great stuff, even though I've really looked down on them at the time. So it was great to talk about serial killers, heavy metal, and cannibal zombies with Shaun. And Shaun, if you ever see this, it was great to meet you. I haven't seen you since. I'm glad to see you're still writing and that you've got a fan base. We see too little of your books in bookshops. And this is still in print, so if you want a good rollicking crime horror read, go for Shaun Hutson, Assassin. And somebody please make a film of it. It's fantastic. This is Outlaw Bookseller signing off with another story from Bookselling. Good night for now.